they say there's no budget. The example put up is that they have conducted a CSR of that year.
No, this is just one of the examples. No? Coca-Cola, because of the multinational company,
That does not have any relevance with the countries. That is driven by the global.
Yeah. Coca-Cola would have that globally
Country
too.
perspective you are not getting from the example.
Yeah, correct. In a way.
Yeah.
Sorry, while you're waiting, I think most of you would know that today we finish a little bit late, not 5:30, 6:20, all right? So that you don't get excited, you're going to rush off. Thank you.
Does it work? Sorry.
It's not planned by me. You should be reading. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm the last one.
And the last one.
Vietnam have only one paper. Okay, so I asked for Jimmy, maybe you add 2 more minutes from me. So my topic is, I'm telling you a success story of the Vietnam Textile and Apparel Association, that is VTAX, in terms of signing a collective bargaining agreement. Everybody knows about CBA, collective bargaining, but it's the first time in our country that an industry signed an industrial CBA. So to give you a very brief image about Vietnam, so Vietnam by now, the GDP is almost $100 million. Our growth is, GDP growth is 6.8%, but the per capita income is almost, lowest in whoever who are in the conference room here. We have only $1,200 per capita GDP. So maybe we are the lowest. I haven't checked on the internet. Our inflation rate is very high at about 9%. But this year, we will be at a higher inflation rate. External debt, we are expected to be 50%, roughly by this year, 48%. Trade export, we have about $70 billion. This is the geography of Vietnam. We have now 86 million people. We have 3,500 kilometer coastline, but our trade deficit is about 20%. The very interesting about our country is our population is 86, but our minority groups is 54. We're a small country, but we are very diversified in minority groups. So why it is a success story? So I say a CBA is not something very special. Every company got a CBA, and in Vietnam it's lawful, it's legal to get a CBA. It should be a CBA. But an industrial CBA is a successful story. It's an initiative because it has a great economic impact and significance for Vietnam by this moment. Why I'm telling you this? Because look at this picture. The textile, now we occupy 18% of the total revenue of export in Vietnam. The other 60%, look at the figure here, the other 60% including oil. So oil really got a very high percentage, but we occupy almost 20% in the textile industry in the export structure in Vietnam. So to sign this CBA is very important. Almost 20%, the other 22% divided to fishery, rice, coffee, rubber, and wood. So these are agricultural products, and textile is having a very important role in our exports, and we need exports to get dollars, otherwise we got a very difficult. What are we facing now? We are facing a CPI, that means the inflation of consumer price index. By the time I was here, it was also almost 15% by July. And it's getting a very difficult time for us. By the end of the year, it may be 20%. The deficit of our import is about 15 to 20%. For every $100 we export, we have to pay $120 for importing the raw materials, machineries, whatever. That is a problem with us. These are the CPI in May 2011 and the CPI 2008. So 2008 is the crisis time and the hardest time from every one of us. But look at the CPI here in Vietnam. We are having a very high raise in terms of CPI, and the higher the CPI, the harder the life of the workers. That's the problem with us. Inflation may be highest in East Asia. By the end of half year 2011, we are heading to 20%. That means we are heading to 15, 18, and then 19, 20%. Our government only accepts 17% maximum. This is what we promised the people, but it may be very hard. The exchange rate in US dollar compared to Vietnam dong is depreciating every year. Look at this, the exchange rate against US dollars by July 2011. So these are the positive part, we are the negative part. We have some partners, Thais are getting with us, but we are much worse than you are, almost 10% depreciations. Look at the stock market, we are much worse because of the inflation, because of the imbalance of the import and export, because of the strength of the economy, we are having some problem with this. Why it is a successful story? Why it is important? Because it ensures a social stability for Vietnam. This is the number that Jimmy told us this, maybe Ravi or somebody told us that we will be 7 billion people by this year. So by the time I write this paper, in 11 a.m. morning on July 22nd, it was 6.933. But including Vietnam, from 1921 to 208, we are 86 million people in the same area that we lived 50 years ago, but almost 7 million people ranking 13 in the world. I told Dr. Low that we have the same kilometer square in Vietnam and Malaysia, but the population will almost triple what's happening in. That's why the per capita income of GDP was very low. We're just above Afghanistan. Look at the number. Almost 20 million people, labor force, have unstable jobs, and 70% of them are in the rural areas. So every time they can be jobless. I'm sorry, this number is from the statistics, so I couldn't show you. This is the quality of the quantity. We have almost 90 million people, but we are ranking 116 in terms of education fulfillment of high school. The number I get is our literacy rate is 93.5%. Out of 100 people, 93 people of our country can read, can write. But in terms of schooling of high school, we rank 160. We are quite struggling against. How diversified our country is. So actually our people, Viet people, ranking number 1 is the majority. the Viet people is the majority, which occupy almost 88% of the total populations. But the rest of them are the minority groups. So our social impact of this CPA is very important. We shouldn't have any kind of discrimination among other minority groups in our country. To give you more information, China has 56 minority groups, and we have 54. We have just 2 less than what in China. So our number is, this is the latest statistic I got when I sit on the flight. I got a number here, the paper here, that by the first 6 months in Ho Chi Minh City where I'm living, there are 160% increase in unemployment register. Ho Chi Minh City is the economic center of Vietnam. So that 6-month number equal to 85.93% of the total of 2010. So that means 2011 will be a very difficult time for us. Very difficult time for us. Why it is successful? It is the tension of the labor market under our populations. Why? This is 50 years ago, in 1950. This is in 2010. This is 2020. This is 2050. We will, what we call, falling into a golden population situations. That means the number of young people from 15 to 60 will have the largest group. Look at this one. The older people are more than the young people, right? 50 years ago. And now, more young people are there in the middle. So this is 0 age. That is 100 age, for example. So the people who are in the middle from 15 to 60, that means in the work age, has the biggest from now on. We are here, 2010. We have another 30 years to go because of the huge populations. That's why CPA, collective bargaining, is very important for us. In 2020, 65% of our population will range from 15 to 59 age. That's why we have a very rich workforce. If we do not solve the problem, then we will have a very serious problems. That's why populations and GDP and Millennium Development Goals have a very close relationship. 87 million people, 100 billion US dollars, they are pressing together of the Vietnam economy. And then our per capita income will decrease if we do not control these numbers.
Two more minutes.
Yeah.
2 more minutes.
The gap between the lowest and the highest is widening. So, life expectancy, 73 years old. But health age, 58. The other point is, it jeopardizes our millennium commitment. This is our president. And we got a new president by now. We completed 5 out of 8. These are the good ones. We got it. And these are the 3 ones that we still have to struggle. If this situation continues, then it jeopardizes our commitment. That's the problem with us. It helps lessen the number and the frequency of strike in the textile industry. Look at the number. Textile industry, 28% strikes all totally in Vietnam are in the textile industry. The other 72%. You can solve that, and we can solve this social unrest. So, the other reason why it is a successful story, because it is totally voluntary. It is not compulsory. It's truly unprecedented in Vietnam. It's never been that happen in the ICBA, industrial CBA. It's symbolic for the industrial, and it forms a legal framework for the whole industry. So this is what we are going to say. So finally, I'm going to tell you this. I learned from all of you. It is simply beyond the laws. Because nobody forced the textile industry to sign this industrial collective bargaining. They are going to do that. And my story is how important and significant of this ICBA. Thank you.
Thank you. Vietnam, is there any question? Yeah, please go ahead.
I had quite a difficulty in terms of finding out the relevance of the CSR which we were looking into. But you made some references somewhere where you were making some comparative study, and then I was wondering that you did name some countries in the Asia Pacific, but you left out some of the countries like China and India in that comparative study. I was wondering why. Whereas in minority group you were referring to China, that you have more than minority community than China. So I just want to see that clarification from your side. And then for learning in the inflation and trade deficit, you are also not making a comparison in terms of some learning which Vietnam could make. I'm taking understanding of most of the negatives reflection from your presentation. So what do you have to say about that?
Thank you. First of all, I want to clarify this point. We have 54 minority groups. China has 56. So China has more than we are. China is a much bigger population. So this is a number that we are having quite a sensitive policy to deal with the 54 minority groups. Secondly, what is my presentation linked to the CSR that we are learning? Actually, the topic is very narrow, CBA. CBA is collective bargaining agreement. Every enterprise in Vietnam, every single enterprise in Vietnam is required to sign a CBA with the trade union. But the industrial CBA, I mean up to the industrial level, is not legally required. It is voluntary. So the textile industry is the first industry among many other industries in Vietnam started this project after 3 years of negotiating. So they have to collect all the CBA of all the textile company in the industry and negotiate together with all the textile workers. It is much more challenging work than to sign a single CBA. So the story I'm telling is just simple like that.
But you see, with that minority group, are you drawing some positive conclusion out of that when you are correlating it with China?
Yeah.
And then the comparison with respect to other areas, inflation and trade deficit, when you refer to the China and India, let's say, in the Asia Pacific, what are there any kind of a conclusion or references made in this particular study? That are there any kind of a learning from these two giant countries or anything of that kind?
The comparison that I'm doing, I don't mean to compare any other country, but what I meant is how important is this ICBA for Vietnam by this moment, because we are struggling against